Hey, how you doing, boys? It's Wall here from Wallcraft. Just bringing you another little update here. I know it's been a little while since I've released a video, so I figured get on the mic and give you a little status update as to how things are going. Let's just dive right into it. First things first, there's been a little bit of difficulty in the past month or so, a little bit more. Essentially, I had upgraded my desktop to Windows 10 and was having some issues with it, and managed to nail most of them, but eventually Windows decided to release a security update, which ended up bricking my hard drive. I lost a lot of work, and a lot of time was spent on rebuilding everything. Luckily, we are back in the saddle. We are ready to continue development. So I do apologize for the delay. It's been about 3 weeks since I've had a status update here on the channel. Tournaments and classrooms, of course, will continue on, and everything is rebuilt now as of yesterday. Got all my tools set up, so we should be good to go. And I do have redundancy on a lot of things, but the issue is a lot of the developments within the last week or so before my hard drive crashed were not saved. As well, I had to rebuild all of the tools, and I did lose a lot of custom scripts. So it is unfortunate, but that's how it goes sometimes. Luckily, the server itself was unaffected. This was my personal desktop that I had these issues on, so it didn't affect gameplay for the players. They were still able to play Wallcraft, of course, which does have constant backups running, so never really a concern there. More so just personal things that I lost, which is unfortunate, but everything can be rebuilt, so not really a concern. I'd like to bring you a small update here. This was for one of my custom player housing projects I had just finished today, and I'll show you the other one that I'm still working on. But I had a player reach out who is a supporter of the project, and he said, well, I want my house in the Plaguelands and put it somewhere around here and see what we got going. So today I did a little bit of work on the map editing, and if you're familiar with this area, you know that the area in this spot doesn't really have anything. It's just a little blank area up in the mountains. Typically there's some hills up here, and the mushrooms kind of block the path. I leveled out the terrain and added the buildings that he had requested. He wanted a more decrepit looking barn, but not totally run down. He wanted a burned out farmhouse though, with some of the amenities that you'd see from like the farmhouse locations in game. Broken carts, some crates, barrels, etc. Of course, it got the Wallcraft treatment. It is a player house, so we do have the locking door, which is assigned with a key for it, for the Thomas Zana's homestead. Of course, I do have key myself, and this will keep all the ne'er-do-wells from Eastern Plaguelands well out of reach from the house. He wanted the decrepit looking barn on the interior, so I made sure that it has the skeletons, the broken barrels, all the little bells and whistles that you'd expect from a decayed site. But he did have one special request. He said he wanted an NPC which represented him, and he wanted some nice little chickens to represent some pet ducks that he had. Unfortunately, there's no ducks in World of Warcraft, but there are chickens, so he said chickens would be perfectly fine. And he just wanted them named after him, so, or after his pet ducks that he had owned. So we have, of course, Alfred J. Quack, we have Lucky, and we have Tootie. Oop, there's Tootie. And of course, his player model is one of the original alpha models, one of the unused ones that you won't really see ever in game until now. He did have one special request. He wanted the NPCs to be ghosts, so a normal player wouldn't be able to see them unless they were dead. So we're just going to go ahead and teleport over there while dead. Of course, you can walk through the door if dead, so you can get back in. You don't get locked out. But that way, you can see it with the dead ghost when you're standing here. And we'll just throw this on just to show that it's a ghost effect. So, it's not the same Eye of Shadow type invisible NPC. It's one of the ghost NPCs. Well, I should say, it's a ghost NPC, so it has the proper flags to function where you can only see it while ghosted. Much like Frank Lorne Forgeright in BRD. Which I was absolutely happy to do. It's a very unique request, and it was a very fun project to work on for today. So, let's just get a nice little flight overview of the house. I'll take a look at it from the air. And as you can see, this location is normally, some mountains typically are right here, and some mushrooms and trees normally stand here where it's nothing really interesting. There's no NPCs, no objects that spawn around here typically. So it's pretty much an unused location. I carved out the mountains, leveled it out a little bit, added some of the decals and mushrooms around. And there's a little pathway cut up into here so you can access it pretty easily. I just want to make sure the terrain is actually leveled out correctly. Sometimes when working with the map editor, you level it out and you'll smooth it out, but it's tough to view it from an in-game angle, so you want to make sure everything's correct. And this is looking really good. Beautiful. Yeah, looking very nice, very nice. Added some of the decayed fencing around here, and if you go around the back, it's just, of course, nice big mushroom behind here. All the trees and all of the objects obviously match with the zone. When I do custom housing, I try and make sure that the objects and whatnot all match with the zone. So, speaking of which, we'll go take a look at the other house that I just made. And, of course, like I said, this is a locking door. It has a special unique key that is assigned to the player. There's currently 3 in-game right now, and I do have to make 1 more. But actually, I do plan on making 2 more, I should say. We'll go to the other one. And I'm still working on this one. I have to add some of the flourishes and decals. The player had wanted some chairs set up around this pond. This pond is fishable, so he'll be able to just relax here with some friends and hang out and do some fishing. Of course, this one is in South Shore, so we'll get a nice flight overview of it. This is normally just a flat, unused area. Of course, South Shore, so it's got like a nice sprawling layout. He wanted a house set up next to this pond here, a little bit further away from the town. And I had thought about maybe facing the door towards the town, but I thought, you know what, you walk out the front house, you get to see the pond, you'll have some chairs set up, it'd be really nice. Added a nice little well to the back here. And these well objects will, of course, provide water for players. Each house will come equipped with a spigot or a well to where you can obtain a daily ration of water, so save you a trip to the local mage in town. Some nice decals here, wheelbarrow with some boxes full of bottles and whatnot. Of course, a locking door comes standard with each house, and he opted for the doodad set here that gives a little bit more of a comfortable family vibe. The cozy fire, of course, which I still have to assign the game objects to where you can allow cooking and whatnot, but you can see that the fires exist and all that. Nice bed here. I might add some more customizations to the interior depending on what he wants. I just have to get back a hold of him and see what he wants for it. You got some nice chairs here. Sit down. I'll probably add a book or so to the table so you can have something to read. Very likely, too, for the houses, I'll add a book object, and I'll let you pick whatever book you want. I can even do, I can quite literally do a full novel. If you want a 300-page novel, I can add it. That's not a problem. I don't know if there is an upward limit to the book. Objects within the game, I'm pretty sure that they can have unlimited pages, essentially. So that's no issue there. And some nice barrels full of apples around here. Kind of give a little throwback to the apple orchard and some shrubbery. Yeah, very nice location. Chose a very nice location here. So currently the occupied locations are South Shore, Eastern Plaguelands, Red Ridge, Deadwind Pass, and there'll be one more location for the last house that I have to build for this month. So there's a lot of availability still on the map. Like I said, there's going to only be one custom house per zone, so if you are interested in a custom house, just get a hold of me. The custom open world housing is the same as instance housing and the racial housing that's offered, but the custom open world housing is limited towards Patreon members, and there can only be one per zone, so obviously there's limited availability. But again, they feature all the same perks as the other housing. The only real difference is the custom aesthetic and the placement of it, along with all the map and terrain edits that accommodate it. So if you want a house that's tucked away up in the mountains of, let's say, like Hinterlands or Arathi Highlands, somewhere like that, I can shape out the entire terrain to accommodate whatever you want. I'm willing to spare no expense when it comes to making it look really nice. You know, that's part of the passion here of the project. So we got nice little decals. I might add some more smokestacks to this, but it's got a nice little bit of steam and smoke coming out of it. And excellent location. I really do like the location. I thought maybe of swapping the house with the yellow roofed one, the thatch roof one, but he did request the blue one, so I'll see what his response is on that. It's very easy to swap out the assets for this one, and I believe that it would fit a little bit better with the South Shore, but this is also the house that's used up in the farmstead over here, the Hillsbred Fields, so it does fit very nicely in with the area. You can see the same blue roofed houses over here. Yeah, some very nice detailing here, very nice. And as for the last thing that I'd like to showcase for this month's update video would be something very big. Something very big. And of course we've seen this before, the original Alpha Karazhan. Never before seen in the vanilla files, never before seen in-game by players, at least outside of Grinder's Alpha project. This is the original Alpha Karazhan, but it has something very, very big. A good friend, EverJunior, who is a master of WMO editing in Blender, went through and he fixed up the entire thing. So it's no longer got missing doorways or missing staircases. Previously, if you had seen some of the older videos, this staircase down here wouldn't render correctly, so it just looked like a big hole into a void, and you could walk down it, but you couldn't see yourself while you were walking down it. And that's because the portals within the WMO that separate different chunks of the building were not correct. They had way too many vertices. There's a lot of broken aspects of this building previously. It was never finished in development, so it wasn't really playable up until now. And ooh, you can actually see here that there is a portal for the two areas here that separate. But a player won't be able to normally get up here, so not a concern. Yeah, all the staircases are all fixed up. The exterior is all done correctly. You have a lot of different cool little touch-ups here just to add the detailing. In fact, this is a really big one too. If you're familiar with this WMO, you know that the this interior has some issues, but there's like a missing staircase here. So he went ahead and added the staircase directly to the building. And probably my favorite part, and something that only a GM would notice, a player would never really notice this, but I always noticed it while flying around the building, would be the observatory. And you can see the telescope coming through the observatory. Previously, if you were standing on the outside of this building, it was just a big textureless void, and you couldn't see inside the building. It would just, you would basically see directly through the building into the void. Well, he went through and he did a lot of really good work to fix this, and he added the correct portaling so you can actually get through this too. It used to be totally solid. You would have to use GM commands to move forward past this. Well, now you can actually go through it. It's actually a hole cut in the roof now instead of just simulated. So a lot of cool little touch-ups to Alpha Karazhan, and that means that it will be made playable in Wallcraft. A big concern of mine previously, I didn't have the proper equipment to actually run the software that would be required to edit these. I do have the equipment now, but I don't have the knowledge or experience with Blender or using WBS, which is the WoW Blender Studio plugins. I've never touched them before, so it was just always something that I would tell people, you know, it is what it is. But now that I have somebody who's willing to contribute to the project, that type of work that I'm not capable of doing myself, it's a huge blessing, because that means we can actually get these models touched up and fixed up and the way that they're meant to be. And what's even bigger too is not only is it going to be featured on Wallcraft, it'll be featured here first. We're going to release the models for everybody to use, so anybody who's using a vanilla emulator or vanilla project, even Wrath of the Lich King, TBC, Cataclysm, they can take this model and they can put it directly into their server. And this is the first time you'll ever have access to a usable Alpha Karazhan. It exists in the game files, of course. That's where we got it from originally, the model, but because of how broken it was and how incomplete it was, nobody would ever really use it feasibly. You know, just a cool little thing to mess around with at most. But now it's usable. We can populate this with enemies, and I have some big plans for this place. As I said, the plan is to very likely incorporate it into a special wing of Caverns of Time, where you can essentially go back in time to the original state of Karazhan as it was being constructed by Agwin. And it's going to primarily be an open world PvP / world boss zone. This instance is absolutely massive. It's definitely designed for... originally in Alpha there were going to be 60-man raids, but they had to tone it back down to 40-man because the game couldn't handle 60 players just due to the hardware at the time. You know, the server hardware couldn't really handle 60 players in a raid, so they tuned it down to 40-man for vanilla and halfway through the alpha / beta. But obviously this building itself is an artifact of a much older time. I believe actually this building was originally began construction using the Warcraft 3 engine, not even the World of Warcraft engine. And you can see that with this building right here. This section would have been the original portion of it. This original portion was later connected onto the, you know, the whole thing, the bigger portion. But this original portion would have been the Tower of Karazhan, and that's why it looks very rudimentary and simplistic. It would have just been a spiral tower going up to the top here. But this portion was built in the, I believe, original Warcraft 3 engine, so it had a lot of issues. Like an insane amount of vertices in one surface where if you stepped on it, it would crash your client because the vanilla client couldn't handle that. But that's totally fixed now, so no longer will you have any issues actually using the model and actually playing around with it. Yeah, some amazing work here, so very excited. Obviously development is continuing on very strong, very rapidly here. I haven't done any touch-ups to the last few specs that do need a little bit of TLC. That'll be coming over the next month, maybe the next month or two. I still have to do Frost Mage, Shadow Priest, and Resto Shaman. Those were saved for last because they're generally considered a very good spec to begin with, so I do plan on adding some cool stuff to them, but they weren't in urgent need of anything for tournament play. So, and speaking of tournament play, the next tournament, of course, is coming up on the last Saturday of the month, and it very likely will be held somewhere in here. That is a little hint for anybody watching. It's going to be a PvE-based tournament, and nothing too fancy, nothing super special, but very likely be showcasing some bosses, or at least a boss. So definitely come stop by on the last Saturday of the month, 2 p.m. Eastern time. Open to everybody, so just show up, join the raid, and good luck. Until next time, always a pleasure.